I think it's safe to say this isn't quite where we thought we would be in the middle of 2020. A mass lockdown to beat a pandemic, that's not something most of us would have predicted. And apart from getting a crash course in public health and personal hygiene, the world has really shrunk. This is what constitutes social interaction for a lot of us these days. And it's really missing the human touch. That's sucked the life out of our support networks and the way we interact with each other. Think about the weddings, birthdays and funerals that have been cancelled, holiday plans on hold. In being asked to stay inside, a lot of Australians have had to ask themselves how they're going to pay the bills, how to keep a roof over their heads, and whether they'll have jobs to go back to. For others, it's about asking where they're at in life and where they're headed. So stay with us as we travel across the country to take a look inside the new normal.
Pretty much had the industry that I've worked in for most of my adult life annihilated overnight.
It was a little bit hard because we were hearing, 10 or 12 ambulances go past our place every day.
It's been huge. We probably had a good 97% drop in turnover.
Some of my friends have been stuck in China at the moment, not being able to return.
Well, I'm Madge Fleming.
And I'm Jez Fleming.
We set off and everything was just wonderful. We arrived in Antarctica and things were looking good. We managed 4 wonderful days there. And I think on the 4th day, the expedition leader announced that there was a passenger with coronavirus, or what we thought could possibly be coronavirus on board. Then we were all put into lockdown. We went to our cabins thinking, oh, well, maybe a day or 2 and we'll be out of here. But it was actually 3 weeks. If we had known it was 3 weeks at the beginning, we would have been absolutely horrified. The only time I was scared was when the diagnosis was made. And somehow it came through, we were actually in bed, and I think it was 11 o'clock at night. And I remember saying to Jez, oh my God, we're never going to get off this ship if there's a virus on board. I think at that time, nobody realised that if you had very mild symptoms, that you could possibly have the virus, because the information that we were getting was that if you had the virus, you were at death's door.
The indication that you had coronavirus was that you had a high temperature, and that you would have there would be a fever. Now, I didn't have a fever. I didn't have a high temperature. I was a bit grumpy for 2 or 3 days, and therefore I was not myself. I had a few other signs of aching limbs, and I put that down to ship motion. There was a period when I had diarrhea for maybe 12 hours. And all of these things, when you thought back on it, I said, that is when I was getting the disease. There were 3 of us on board, 2 crew members and myself. One crew member was clearly very ill, and I believe he was a chap that, in fact, died. And they said, no, you get into a wheelchair. So I popped into a wheelchair, put in the ambulance. Then that is all strapped into the ambulance, and off we went with the siren blaring. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, if I get to the hospital in one piece, I'll be bloody lucky, never mind the fact that I may have got coronavirus. When I got out of the ambulance, I saw the press there, and I thought, oh, well, this is the opportunity for me to say thank you. I sort of did my bally sort of thank you to them, so they could see that I was very respectful and wanted to say thank you. And then I got down and kissed the ground like the Pope would do, and they photographed that, and I gave them the thumbs up. They were all giving me the thumbs up and waving to me, and so that was it. So it was quite, I didn't feel sort of emotional. I felt I had to pay my respect to these people who had done so much, not only for me, but for everyone coming off the ship.
G'day, I'm Jacques from the Billabong Roadhouse. We probably had a good 97% drop in turnover. Obviously people aren't on the street. We're on the tail end of the actual shutdown area. So there's really nowhere to go past this point apart from Geraldton. So it's been massive, yeah. Visitor numbers here would get this time of year probably 1,500 to 2,000 a day, and at the moment we'd be lucky to get 30. During the school holidays, this would be absolutely mad. We've got a 60-seat restaurant, which would be full most of the day, 18 rooms out the back, which would also be full every night, and there'd be 2 cars banked up on each bowser, but as you can see today, there's nothing. This is my 14th year, and bought it as a really good idea. Thought, well, let's give it a go, let's run a roadhouse. And a lot tougher than I thought it was, but it's quite enjoyable. It's a lovely place to be, but you know, when you get stuck with things like this, it's like totally out of your hands. Most of the years have been ups. We've been lucky enough to keep our customer base, which is really good, but we've never had a down year badly like this one, not as bad as this one. I've got a good woman by my side, so I can't complain, and she keeps me pretty steady, but otherwise it's pretty bad. I mean, you know, realistically, when you work in any place like this where it's fairly remote and you've put a few years into it, and all of a sudden, out of your control, it's just shut down. That'd be pretty devastating, yeah, for anybody. The truck drivers are a good portion of our business right now, but we have noticed in the last week that they've actually dropped off as well. Obviously, nobody's out there buying. Supplies are getting, you know, still on shelves. So the truck driving side of things is actually slowing down as well. The sooner the regional borders open, the better it is for most businesses. But you know, we've proved the fact that we can contain this thing at this point, and yeah, got to open these regional borders before a lot of these businesses just don't reopen. It's very simple.
It has been a little bit crazy because you've had parents that want to self, you know, quarantine, which is fine. So some children haven't been coming to care at all. You've had parents that have asked for extra hours and days, knowing that they don't have to pay for it. And I suppose the hardest part is, like, we have to keep up with our programs and menus and supply everything that we were supplying before on half the wage. But it's hard to write a program or plan your menus if you don't know who's going to be in the next week. And I'm up at 5 a.m. and don't close till nearly 7 p.m. every night. So we're losing money hand over fist. And I don't feel that it's right that we should have to apply for job keepers for a job that we've already got, and we're not considered frontline workers. You know, yeah, it's been tough. It's quite degrading, actually, what the government have done.
Yep, not a problem. You're looking for daycare?
Main people that are bringing their children to care are people that are working in the mines, and are receiving, you know, 100% of their wages. They've had no loss in their income. So, yeah, they can still afford to pay the full daycare fees, but obviously due to what's happened, they're not able to. So that's probably the most frustrating part, is that they're definitely benefiting from this free childcare, but really we're the ones that are taking a loss.
It's definitely been a blow. You know, like I've taken on a new enrolment, which I'll receive nothing else for. I did that out of the kindness of my heart to help a family out. Their parents are prison officers here, so they don't have any other option for their children to go anywhere else. All the daycare centres here are full. Educators just don't want to take on obviously more of a workload when we're gaining nothing by it. You know, it's another mouth for us to feed, another child for us to look after, and you know, they're putting us at risk as well. So yeah, a lot of educators here are declining. They're just saying no, sorry.
The uncertainty of, am I going to get the JobKeeper? And I found out this week that I am able to get it, which has been a bit of a relief, because I have been working at a big pay cut, thinking it's not really worth it if I'm going to be running at such big loss. So I was thinking of shutting the doors, but hopefully the JobKeeper will be able to get us through to hopefully the other side of this.
Was that good fun, Mike? Did you enjoy that? Oh, cool.
Enjoy. Hopefully in 6 months, it'd be nice to have our wages back and be back to a normal life. I'm going fishing.
Yeah, I'm going with her.
Yeah.
I just miss like going out with my friends, be able to like just chill with them all day and not have to worry about the coronavirus and yeah. Year 12 is your last year and you just want to get everything done, and like at home like you might think that like you're behind on work and you're not going to finish and you're going to like become last and you just don't know. So yeah, it was hard, but then I had to do what I had to do and get my work done. And so when I was maybe 12, I got really sick, so I had to go to hospital for like 3 months because of my heart and that. And then I have like asthma and that. So Mum just scared because if I go back, like she doesn't want anything to happen to me because of my health. Like as soon as I like maybe get coronavirus, like that's it, because like of my heart, because it's not as strong as like everyone else's. Because my school is a sports school, like you do a lot of like sports, so you keep fit a lot, and you just like you're always doing something. Like you're never just sitting down. Like you're always out and about. Like you're always outside kicking the football and being with your friends and just doing something. Like you're not sitting down all the time. So that's another way to keep healthy. Like I hope I'm still like playing football, and I hope I'm still close with my friends and yeah, I hope I'm doing well in 6 months' time.
In the middle of March, I was stood down from my job that I'd been in for the last 12 years and pretty much had the industry that I've worked in for most of my adult life annihilated overnight, because I'm in the travel industry and it's going to take a fair long time for that to actually bounce back, I'd say. Do you want to get Mummy a bowl out, Jack?
Here's a bowl, buddy.
It was a lot to take in. I was 7 months pregnant at the time. You know, all those feelings of how we're going to pay the mortgage, how we're going to pay the bills. You know, I had in my head that this was when maternity leave was going to start and this is the plan, and then all of a sudden it's all turned completely upside down. So that was a pretty emotional time, and as any travel agent can attest as well, we build our relationships over many years, so it was also, you know, how can we look after our clients, how can we make sure they're okay as well. So it was kind of a double prong type thing at the time. My husband was still working. He's taken annual leave so that he was limiting his contact with people as well, so we could really just get in our own little bubble and be as healthy as possible. 6 months' time, I think it will be a bit better, but I don't think we'll be completely back to normal by then. I do believe that this is going to take a little while for our lives to get back.
I started 2 weeks before everyone else due to a sinus infection that I get every year.
Warwick was premature, so that automatically affects the lungs and can affect the lungs for life. But he does have a kidney condition. He had a kidney die when he was little and had to have one removed, so he's down to 1. And, you know, he has big aspirations of being a Paralympian, and he trains really hard for that. So we need to protect him as much as possible. For myself, I have a spinal cord injury that can automatically affect your immune system, and I tend to get chest infections and pneumonia.
Yeah, look, take his boots. Take his boots.
It's been difficult. I'm not a teacher. You couldn't pay me enough money to be a teacher. It's just, I don't have that in me. Warwick actually, with his cerebral palsy, has a processing issue, so it takes a lot for him to process the information coming in and then get his answers out. He hasn't just lost that schooling part of things where he's got the social side as well as the learning. He's also lost all his races I think we had 25 events cancelled that he had booked in for. we're lucky, we're on 25 acres. He can go out on his wheelchair with his motorised attachment and fly around the paddocks, and, you know, we can go and sit outside and, you know, not worry about being too close to anyone and things like that.
So they picked the most recent winner
the male winner.
And they took his time and they made us do his time.
We didn't know how it was going to work. We didn't know about it until 9 o'clock at night. It started at 11:05 and they finished at, you know, 1 o'clock or something. So, you know, on a Monday night, we were like, what are we doing? It was just a really nice community thing to show each other that they're all still there and wanting to support each other.
Probably getting back to the point where I'd be able to go to Sydney, the train, with my coach and all my friends up there, because the track facilities up there are all closed due to it, so we haven't been able to go up there. So I would like to go up there again and train.
I love how training came first.
Well, I started hearing about things in China maybe 3 or 4 weeks into my exchange, and at that time I was pretty oblivious. Like, I didn't really have much concern for it then. I thought that, you know, that we're a whole ocean away from China and things were going to be fine. Before we know it, we had like 4,000 coronavirus cases. This will be our 3rd month in lockdown. Just recently, though, in the last few days, they relaxed some of the restrictions, so now we're allowed to go outside for physical exercise, which is a very makes a big difference when you spend your whole time inside. The little region of Bergamo is probably been at one of the epicenters of the outbreak in Italy. I think at the start it was a little bit it was a little bit hard because we were hearing, you know, 10 or 12 ambulances go past our place every day. When it was really bad, we were doing, you know, activities every day and stuff. So things like at 1 o'clock during the day, we would go out on the balconies and we'd clap for all the doctors and medical staff. It will still be very similar to what it is today. I think that even once they ease the restrictions, we're probably going to get some sort of I don't like using second wave, but some sort of like a second wave or another load of cases that's going to increase the numbers, and then I think the government's going to be pretty quick to go back into these sort of lockdown conditions.
Hello, this is Angela, and this is my room. This is normally where I do my study, and sometimes I go out from the balcony and take a break. I live with 3 other roommates, all of those from a different country and with a different cultural background, which is very cool, and I have learned a lot from them. As you can see, this is my kitchen. I have cooked rice today, along with cauliflower stir fry, a very Chinese dish. This is our living room. Sometimes I study here, and I also eat breakfast here every morning. Right next to the door, you have our outside equipment with my mask and my coat for going outside for shopping.
Quarantine has actually changed my life quite a while. As a start, I was impacted by the travel ban in the start of February, I think, when I was back in China. And obviously I couldn't get back because of the travel ban. I had to travel to a third country, stay for 14 days, and then I was able to enter Australian borders. After that, I've been pretty much self-isolating in my student accommodation. and doing online courses, of course, in Uni Adelaide, since everything has moved online so far. Because a lot of friends of mine works in, say, restaurants, and restaurants are not allowed to be open anymore. Therefore, they lost their job, or they don't have any shifts, but they are still technically employed. They just don't have any hours anymore. Luckily, university do cover for them, and then they can apply for packages, so that's good. Reimbursement of their flight ticket, as well as reimbursement for their tuition fee, and those came after our discussion with the university, which I'm very happy about. Some of my friends have been stuck in China at the moment, not being able to return. They do have access, though, to the online component of at the moment, so they are able to continue their study to some extent. However, this is not a norm according to University of Adelaide. They would still have to come back to the campus and maybe going through like an intensive teaching period, and then transfer back to normal school life. I could see that the business back to normal in a way, restaurants being opened and uni back to face-to-face. However, I would expect some protocols and practices such as wash your hands frequently, or, carry hand sanitizers, and those kind of small hygiene protocols being taken up and being treated more seriously than before all this happened, which is a good thing, honestly. We should take care of our hygiene. Yeah, so social distancing might be a thing that could stay for a while after 6 months, and might still be the case, which is pretty sad.
Hello, I'm Bethany Simons, normally a writer and performer based in Melbourne, but I lost everything, all of my gigs for this year, and so I'm here back in the bush with my mum and dad in Dubbo, New South Wales. I just had this feeling that I needed to really put my art as the main focus, and so I got the courage to actually resign and leave my job, and I told them in December that I'd be leaving, and we arranged that March would be a good time, and so on the 4th of March I had my big farewell, and I had a whole year nearly of gigs lined up for 2020. I was going to do some travel as well around Australia, visiting different companies that I'd got to know through that job. I was going to do some professional development, write a new show, lots of different projects lined up, and I had 10 whole days enjoying that artist life, and then everything just started to unfold. I was really enjoying getting back into my body and being an actor and being in rehearsals, and the first formal rehearsal where we brought all these different elements together for the project, everything started to just grind to a halt, and we realised that this artist on the project was international and needed to go home before the borders closed, and then the venue that we were going to be performing in was 1,000 seats, and so all of a sudden those restrictions meant that we couldn't perform there. I started to dread opening my emails or when I saw a phone call coming in, because every day for a week I lost gigs that were lined up for the year, the reason that I had left my other job. One of my fears, which I try to keep in check, but it does creep in, because I think, how long is this going to be? I'm 35, and if I want to have children, I need to meet someone, and then that takes a while, and I'm running out of time. So that is a real fear of mine. I think I'm just really grateful for the garden and the fresh air and the company as well, because I live with one other person who would be working really long hours back in Melbourne, but I have this really special time with my parents.
I was nursing at the hospital in Port Lincoln and about to start my maternity leave. My husband was teaching at several of the schools in the region, and my girls were at school, and another daughter was in daycare. So I hoped it wouldn't get here, but then everything started to look like it was spreading throughout the world, and really, really fast, and you started to fear that it could be on every second person that you walk past in the street. So that was a little bit scary. I was more so worried about my grandparents and parents and people that were vulnerable. My main concern is whether we relax too much and there being a second wave and what that's going to look like. I know that our infection control nurse said for a long time she's more worried about flu season because that's when viruses tend to be more prevalent. To have the whole family a part of bringing a new baby home has been the biggest gain. And I know my brother in Adelaide, he's a bit cheeky, but he said he doesn't want to download the app because he's got a newborn as well and he doesn't want to go back to work. He's really enjoying working from home. So he will download the app though. I had to laugh because day one of isolation, I don't think we were in 2 hours. And Ruby, my eldest, came to me and said, Mum, Edda's in the fridge and she's minced all the frites up with her hands and she's emptied a tin of Milo in the bathtub. And you go and investigate and she says, I was making a chocolate bath. And then Ruby, who loves school and is quite anxious about being very studious, straight away said to me, Mum, we need to learn. How are we going to learn? It's okay. I'll be the teacher. It's okay. Bringing baby home, our doctor said no visitors for at least 6 weeks. So that's definitely different. And again, that was a bit of a silver lining for me. I haven't had to worry about making sure I had supplies for visitors or what I look like or put makeup on or do any of that. So it was really peaceful for a time, but we're almost at 6 weeks and I look forward to showing her to the world now. It gets tiring after a while. The midwife that we had thought we should have a little joke on the doctor and popped down a different name. So originally on the birthing card we named her coronavirus, and our beautiful doctor looked at it and said, oh yeah, no, that's nice. It didn't quite click straight away, but the midwife had fun showing all the other nurses at the hospital as well. Some clicked, some didn't, and so that was funny for a bit. It is a feeling like nothing else when you're sleep deprived and then hear that the whole world seems to be turning to shit around you and watching the news too much. So I started watching reality TV shows to turn my mind off and it's definitely worked. We're in a happier place now. We're so privileged to live where we live and I really think we are the lucky country. I'm more afraid for the losses that are occurring around the world.
Thanks, Sandy. You know, if the worst of this crisis is indeed over, perhaps Australia has been a very lucky country. There are already signs of life in the cafes and restaurants, more and more people allowed into weddings and funerals, and even intrastate travel is starting to open up. Now, there are those who question whether we're moving too quickly, whether we're risking a second wave. Either way, the economic impact of this virus is going to be with us for a very long time. So we'll be checking back with those people we spoke to in the next 6 months to see how they're faring in this new normal.